Welcome, Tensae and Elise. You're participating in the course Black Lives Matter, which is a part of the EVAC project, and the EVAC project combining several smaller projects that focus on joint lectures in an international context. And I'm very happy that you took the time to meet with me and to give us a little insight into the course. And to start with, I would like to know, maybe Tensae first, why did you choose the course?
I would say I was taking Introduction to North American Studies last semester, and I found it really very insightful. And so when Professor Hagenish mentioned that she will be teaching a course named Black Lives Matter, I was like, well, I would be interested because I love her teaching style. And number two, I felt like Black Lives Matter, especially after last summer, what we've seen with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the protests that sort of erupted throughout the world. It's a very timely subject to discuss. And I also felt like, as someone that is of color, learning about Black lives was really interesting, especially in the academic sense, where you have readings, where you're given background information, and it's sort of like structured because yeah, I'm really passionate about it, and I do want to learn, and I do want to study about Black lives and the history of Black people and the history of minorities. So I just said, why not? And I really did love the fact that it was very interdisciplinary, in a sense that it's a partner between two universities, but at the same time, the course tries to talk about Black lives, not just in the context of America or the US, but in the context of like global. And a lot of times when we do talk about race and racial politics, it ends up being about America or what's happening in the UK. Aside from that, what is the lives of Black people? What is the history of Black people in Germany and Norway and France? That is oftentimes seldom not mentioned enough. So I felt like it was really fascinating to also learn about Black lives in Europe as someone that is Black and that's living in Europe.
Great, thank you. Thank you. That was a very, very insightful answer. Thank you for that. Elise, what about you? What convinced you to take this course?
About me? Okay. Tensae said a lot, and I was with you, I think, Tensae, in the class of Silkakanesh last semester. And I agree, I like our way of teaching. And I also think that this topic is really important, and we have almost a responsibility to educate ourselves on the topic of Black Lives Matter. And I also think it's really interesting to have this exchange with an American university, because we often observe the US from a Western point of view, like from Europe, but there we have an insight from inside, like from the US, where everything is happening, and I mean most of things is happening. And so I think it's really interesting to have access to this exchange and to meet people that are there and that can share with us their opinion on that.
Yeah. So both of you are highlighting the different perspectives coming together. So, especially on this topic of Black Lives Matter, to have a European perspective and to have the US American perspective, and both having the opportunity to learn from each other. So you're both saying that this joint format, this form of exchange is very important to you. So what do you expect to gain, Tensae, for example, what do you expect to gain from this seminar in the long run?
I mean, it's very interesting because we are studying North American studies, and we do live and reside in Germany and like in the greater context in Europe, right? And then you have students that do live in the continent, or like in the country that we're sort of studying. So it would be really interesting to sort of like see their perspective, and also for us to see how they would react about our understanding of what America is, our understanding of American history, because I feel like no matter how hard you study it, even if we study it in a PhD level, it would still be somebody else's history that you are learning. So it would be very fascinating to see the owners of that history to sort of be in the same room as you and say, okay, so that's how you saw that, and that's how we saw that. And also for us to sort of both criticize and also discuss, issues and topics and historical and like in a greater historical context. So I think that would be really interesting to see for me personally.
And how about you, Elise?
I completely agree, and I think it's really interesting to have this kind of critical approach on what we perceive and what they perceive of what we perceive. And it's also interesting to get to go there during a time of pandemic virtually. I mean, to go there virtually and to meet people, because I cannot really hope to go to the US right now. I've never been, and it's really great to have the opportunity to meet people on the other side of the globe and to just like get in contact with them and exchange on an academic level.
Elise was just pointing it out that there is an advantage to a virtual collaboration. And Tensae, would you agree that this kind of format is actually a chance for a new means of exchange?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen, but there's been, an influx of opportunities for us, for students, or like for anyone actually, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or Clubhouse or any other social media, for people to sort of share links of events that would have otherwise been happening on the ground physically and you wouldn't have had access to them. But now they're like Zoom seminars that are available on YouTube, on Facebook. And it's very fascinating because you get to connect with a lot of people. You get to meet like-minded people that live, in a different geographical area as you. So I think it's very beneficial. And for two universities and for two professors to sort of come together and say, hey, I'm teaching this and your students are learning this. And I think our students sort of came together and learned this course together, it would be very beneficial, because I think, especially with the class itself being Black Lives Matter, I think it would be really fantastic to see how the both of us sort of approach the subject.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. As far as I understood, you did have your first session last week, is that correct? But that was just with the Cologne students, is that right?
Yeah.
How did that first session go, Elise? Maybe you can give us a small summary of the first session.
Okay. Yeah, it was really interesting already. We had to prepare some texts about the movement and then to exchange about that, about what we have encountered in the text, notions or like elements that were talking to us on several different levels. And we had a really, really interesting talk about all of that and about things that I couldn't have imagined without reading those texts and without this talk. I think it's really mind-opening to have this class and this exchange weekly.
Great. And then next week you have the first joint session, and due to time difference, I think it's going to be late at night, like 10 p.m. for you guys. So that's a lot of commitment. Tensae, do you know what to expect from that first joint session? Do you have any idea how that is supposed to go?
I mean, I don't want to say I have expectations, because to have expectations is sort of, set barriers. So I would like to just sort of show up with an open mind and see. But I'm really I'm excited to sort of see new faces as well. And also to have a class of 10 in the evening is going to be refreshing. I'll see if my coffee, will last me till then. But yeah, I'm really excited to just meet and see new faces and sort of see this exchange program sort of come to life, because I think both professors have sort of invested a lot in it, and they're hoping that we will have such a good exchange semester sort of. And it sort of feels as if, we're doing a mini Erasmus. I mean, it wouldn't be Erasmus, but, exchange just in the virtual sense. So yeah.